Hello and welcome to the Mobile Matters podcast, powered by the Mobile Chamber, where we dive into the big topics shaping Mobile's thriving business community. I'm your host, Bradley Byrne, President and CEO of the Mobile Chamber. A special thank you to our podcast sponsor, Visit Mobile, for making today's episode possible. They're offering prizes for local businesses who offer referral for a conference to come to Mobile. Find out how you can win big with the Bring Your Meeting Home campaign on thebusinessview.com. Today, we're real excited to welcome two great friends, Abe and Carl Harper, with Harper Technologies, one of the area's most trusted experts in managed IT data, infrastructure, network services, and cybersecurity. Abe and Carl, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Oh, no, we're delighted to have you. So I'd like to start by hearing more about how Harper Technologies and how you guys got started in the IT space in Mobile.
Oh, wow. So that is a question that is rooted in hobby and passion. So we started at a young age. Back in our adolescence years, we had always talked about Harper Technologies. Abe had talked about Harper Technologies as the older brother and had made construction paper cards that said Harper Tech on them that were blue and neon green.
They were atrocious.
Yeah. Right. So, and we had a grandfather that had experience being an electrical engineer. We had a father that had mechanical experience, and you take those two things and put them together at about the time that computers are becoming popularized in the home, and you get the monster that it created, so to speak. So we took that and took interest in computers, started disassembling and putting them back together. And fast forward to 2002, Abe was in college at the time and had done a year and a half of college and decided that that track was not for him at the time, and called me up and said, "Hey, you ready to start the business that we had always talked about as kids?" I said, "Yeah, let's do it." So I was 13, he was 19 at the time. Didn't have much to lose. Call it naive, call it ambitious, but we hit the ground running. Had some office space that we borrowed from a friend, and started it and grew it from the seedling to what it is now today, and have been extremely blessed and fortunate to call Mobile our headquarters and our home.
Well, we love having you here. So remember, we're lay people, so talk in terms where somebody like me can understand. But
Right.
what services do you provide and who do you typically work with?
So our average client is going to be a small business to medium business. We have a swath of business that's enterprise as well, but it's kind of I won't say niche, but we focus on managed service, infrastructure, and data service or cyber services. Managed service looks like you have a network of devices that need to be protected or some way mitigated um, for failure or routinely inspected. So you entrust us with that service set, and that includes your antivirus, your anti malware, your on-site protection, your off-site protection, your backups. It's kind of a comprehensive wraparound, if you will, for business owners' peace of mind with IT. With regard to infrastructure services, that's the hot topic that was really kind of brought to the forefront pre-pandemic and mostly through COVID. That's the delivery of fiber, copper, and wireless, the connection systems that allow, or the connections that allow systems to coexist. So you think Cat5 installation in a building, wireless infrastructure installation, or fiber optics across a site that's owned by the client. Excuse me. So the third service, at data services, that's offsite backup, that's data recovery, data analysis, and a specialty subset of security services that we provide there as well. So we keep it protected, connected, and integrated.
There you go. It's like the way you made it simple like that.
That's it.
People like me can understand.
I always like to wrap it up by saying we're the outsourced IT for companies that do not have internal IT departments.
Right.
A lot of smaller, medium-sized businesses, they don't have the financial wherewithal to have somebody in-house.
That's correct.
That's right.
So they have to have somebody like you to help them out.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the biggest misconceptions small or medium-sized businesses have about IT safety?
I think
Go ahead,
there
Carl.
I would say there's probably a set it and forget it style solution. You have to be actively engaged in IT at all times. When protecting your network, protecting your data, your infrastructure. That includes making sure that your employees are trained in security awareness. They know what threats to look for, what vulnerabilities to avoid, what emails not to click on, things of that such. Um, I'd say a lot of misconception revolves around the fact that people think that once a firewall is in place or once an antivirus is in place, they're impenetrable, which unfortunately is not the case, because if you give a bad actor the key into your computer, so to speak, then they still can get in and wreak havoc. So you have to have the end user that's on the other side of the keyboard be just as knowledgeable, if not more knowledgeable at times, than the bad actors to know what to avoid and what not to click on and what not to fall prey to.
Well, it's getting to be more and more common that we're being told if you don't recognize something that's coming to you, for God's sakes, don't click on it.
Absolutely.
And even if you do recognize it, be careful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it
That's-
could be a
Yep.
bounty.
That's right.
Question and always verify.
Yeah.
Well, it's scary to those that don't have your expertise because we know that the threats out there, and we're dependent upon people like you to tell us what we need to do to avoid it. So I don't know about other people out there, but I sort of overdo it. If I'm not absolutely certain about something, I just eliminate it. I delete it. It's out of my system.
Yep.
And sometimes I get in trouble to it.
You are the type of end user that we admire.
Well, it really
Rather than make that mistake,
Exactly.
click on something I'm not to click on.
Exactly.
So what emerging threats should business leaders be aware of in 2025?
We talk a lot about cybersecurity, viruses, threat actors in our world. And Carl alluded to it, but the landscape is ever changing. As fast as we innovate technology, the threat actors are innovating ways to break it or infiltrate it. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the event horizon that everybody's experiencing right now in the forms of AI and quantum computing.
Right.
What we know in terms of the standard threat topography as it emerges is going to become much more accelerated because of the mechanisms that allow it access, but also because of the systems that have to be designed to integrate them. AI is probably one of those things that people don't really understand the exposure risk of it. And I'm not talking as much about cyber compromise and data access, but the exposure of information, right? These systems, as you input data into them, they don't unlearn that information. If it's a shared access system, somewhere globally, that information is stored and still accessible by someone else. That's probably, and again, Carl nailed it. It's the interface. It's the human side of the equation, not the technical or the computer side. So, an awareness or a education component of what we try and make people aware of is, hey, know where your data is going, know where your data is residing, know how your data is being managed, know how it's being handled and stewarded. Knowledge is power, right? And any business convention. So, when you think about someone having access to your business data, they also may be aware of your vulnerabilities because of that data. They may have access to your systems, but they also may know how to break those systems. So I think, Carl, you chime in here too, but I think the biggest event horizon threat right now really is quantum and AI for a lot of reasons.
I would agree because it's evolving threats faster, more quickly than they ever have been before. So you're seeing a lot of the same across the event horizon, but you're seeing it more rapidly. You're seeing it spread more rapidly and reach more people more quickly, just because of that AI that is fueling it, as the engine essentially.
I had someone share a story with me in Birmingham at a conference a couple days ago that they had their mother had been impacted by a auto caller on AI that mimicked their voice.
Wow.
And it knew what questions to ask. It knew how to get her to comfortably share information about her accounts with them. And it led to a full-on data remediation and investigation. So, as first I'd heard of such of a level of an incident, but the technology is there already, and unfortunately, if we as users aren't aware of it, that's really the biggest threat. It's kind of creating that awareness and creating that knowledge base to build those walls securely.
It's amazing how realistic it is. I was reading an article and they had an actual video in there. So we're introducing you to this new actress. And it was this woman, and she started talking, gave her name and everything. Miss Stockton said, and that's a completely digital person.
That's right.
That's not a real person. And I was like blown away with how realistic it was.
Yes.
So what that technology can do is really scary. I know for many small businesses, spam can be a big problem. How do they handle spam? What's the best way to handle that?
Carl's got that one. Go ahead, Carl.
Delete it.
Is that simple?
Not all the time. Not all the time. So there's what's known as traditional spam, and then there's phishing spam. Traditional spam is typically just junk mail. It's the equivalent of getting a solicitation in the mail in your mailbox at home. A phishing scam or phishing spam would be similar to someone sending you a message saying, you have an overdue bill, you need to pay this immediately, call this phone number, or click
I've
this.
gotten those.
Right,
Right.
right. Click this link. We need you to resolve it immediately. There's always a call of urgency to it. So knowing how to identify those, knowing what the red flags are, which are typically call to urgency, typos, a email address that doesn't quite resonate. It may say from Microsoft, but be from someone at gmail.com, things of that such, is knowing those flags to look for and then safely deleting it. Or if if you don't recognize it or you're not expecting it, delete it anyway. Throw it into the junk mail, wait for it to be verified. If you can't call anyone to verify that it's actually a legitimate piece of mail that you were supposed to receive, it's safer just to delete it and wait for it to resurface if it is something legitimate.
Yeah. I'd rather find out later that I shouldn't have deleted that thing than not to delete it.
Exactly.
Find out later, I wish I had deleted that.
Than to give away your credit card number or your social information.
Yeah.
Right.
And that I'd be remiss if I didn't mention too. There's systems that we can offer in terms of user awareness training and email mitigation that help to filter out some of those. There's a whole industry segment that falls under our data cyber services component where we're able to offer engagement services where we can help to minimize that. We'll never say eliminate it, right? Because again, as the topography evolves, so do the threat actors. But there's tools that exist that allow the filtration of said spam coming in to be caught at an automation level first, and I'd say a 75 to 80% accuracy.
Yeah,
It's
pretty close.
it's a lot better than what you think of a spam filter back in the 2010 era, and it was like, you couldn't get anything through it or you could get everything through it. They've evolved quite a bit more now. So there's some tools too that can be applied to help lower them if a business is extremely plagued with them too.
That's right.
Well, we're going to come back to all this in a minute here. It's time for our commercial break. And when we return, Abe and Carl Harper will have more practical advice on how to protect your business from cyber attacks. We'll be right back.
Meetings and events bring hundreds of millions of dollars to our local economy, and Visit Mobile wants to partner with Chamber members to keep that momentum going. Know of a meeting or conference that could be a good fit for Mobile? Contact David Clark at dclark@mobile.org. Share your lead, just the meeting name, and you're entered into a raffle. Every qualified lead will win. Some include prizes such as cruises, luxury hotel stays, and restaurant gift cards. Let's grow Mobile together.
We're back with Abe and Carl Harper from Harper Technologies. We've all heard about cyber attacks in the headlines, but it can still feel like something that happens to other people. Can you share a real-world example of how a cyber incident impacted a business and what could have been done to prevent it?
I'll kind of jump in, obviously, for data privacy and protections. We don't ever disclose where and when, but I can kind of share scenarios, and I can assure you that they're not it happens to them and not me scenario. Cyber attacks are generally, as Carl mentioned earlier, a byproduct of the human factor. So what you'll generally see is someone from the outside create a breach in the system by creating a confidence with someone on the inside. And that's either through an email, through access to a system. We routinely hear of businesses and individuals where someone has reached out to them, they saw an email, saw an attachment, thought it was legitimate. I can think of at least 4 in the last week, perhaps, that have come across our desk. They click the attachment, and immediately the threat actors go into action. They install their attachment software onto the back end of that computer. They mitigate their way down through that computer's file system. They do what's called lateral movement across the topography. They find out what other collateral damage. It's very much like warfare, right? When you go in, you're assessing your target of value, but also while you're figuring out how to extract that target of value, how do you move laterally across the battlefield? What other gains can you make in the territory while you're there? And then finally, we hear about ransomware. And that's, when you hear ransomware, most people think it's the attack. It's actually not. It's a byproduct usually of the of the system infiltration or someone coming across the system, and then they're wanting to kind of cover their tracks or add a layer of embellishment so that they can gain financial gain on the back end in addition to the injury they've caused.
So prevention, what's the best way to prevent all that?
It's kind of a trifold thing. I'll share a specific scenario. We had a client that onboarded with us some years ago. I say onboarded. They came to us as a byproduct. They actually didn't onboard as a client, but they came to us as a byproduct of an attack. And they effectively had someone that sent an email into one of their representatives inside of their organization. That person trusted the email enough to click on, and this email had basically been intercepted as a set of wire instructions. He asked for a specific incident. I was trying to think as I talked through that what one of the best ones to share. Well, what the threat actors did, they took they took the email that had been intercepted that was meant for a vendor and had wire information in it, and then changed the wiring instructions to a bank that was not the bank that it was to go to. The threat actor then proceeded to urgently, as Carl mentioned, rush the client to submit that wire 3 times over the course of 2 days. That wire was in excess of $400,000.
Oh my gosh.
So about a $1.2 million impact to this business because it was a foreign trade entity, and they wired it 3 times because they thought that they were wiring the money to their vendor when the invoice had been intercepted.
Wow.
So as to your question on the best way to mitigate or prevent it, you nailed it earlier. If you see something and you don't recognize it, delete it. But if you think you do recognize it, when it's dealing with security of data, the welfare of people or an organization, or finances, always pick up the phone and call. There's nothing better than using a phone number that you know you've got in possession and a voice on the other end of that phone and trusting that you're getting the right person. And they'll tell you, yes, I sent that, or no, I didn't send that.
That's right.
And you can then go back and delete it or act accordingly. And once you've identified it, for the better good of the community, it's good if you've got a resource or a partner like Harper Tech that you can report it to and say, hey, this came across, because we're gonna nerd out over that, honestly. Right? We're going to geek out a little bit, and we're going to try to figure out, okay, how are these threat actors using this level of technology and sophistication to get to you that it seems so realistic that you had to call us and ask that question? And then for the good side of the cyber community is a good side and a bad side. That allows us to then begin spreading the word. Hey, this threat is emergent. This information is out there. These actors are using these tactics. You think back to, God, I'm going to show my age here. Think back to Independence Day. Right, when the spaceships all settled over the Earth and they blocked the signals and nobody could get calls out around the world, they jumped on Morse code and started transmitting how to bring them down across the world. It's kind of the same way it works in cybersecurity. Once we know that the threat actors are using some nuanced tactic that may be under the surface, we want to get the word out and let the community know in a way so that people don't fall victim to that.
We've seen more and more state-sponsored cyber attacks in the U.S. Why is it important for businesses in Mobile to prioritize cybersecurity?
I think because threat actors don't pick just large targets. And that probably goes back to the misconception piece that we talked about earlier as well, because that would be another common misconception is that, oh, I'm just a smaller company. I'm a small business. No one's looking at my company. They think only Fortune 500 companies are being targeted, Fortune 100 companies. And that's just not the truth. Big and small companies are targeted just alike. So just as you're having state-sponsored cyber attacks, local cyber attacks are still very much a real thing. Ransomware is still very much a real thing. Wire fraud, still very much a real thing. So having the proper protections in place for prevention to protect you against that, both on your perimeter network, on your local computer, and then having an educated end user to help protect against that as well. Those 3 components really, really help in mitigating those types of attacks.
Well, you're touching on this, but let me get sort of directly into it. So, how can investing in cybersecurity strengthen not just individual businesses, but the larger business community here in Mobile?
So we talked earlier about lateral movement of the threat actors. One of the things that I can personally attest to, and I think we'll all agree with, is that Mobile, even though it's a metropolitan, is a fairly small community, right? We're tight knit. At any given time, your email address and your contact is in someone's contact book. So less than 2 connections away here, easy.
Yeah.
Right? So when you think about the industry that we have, the exposure that we have as a coastal community, our port, the international effect of things coming here, even though, to Carl's point, we've got all these smaller cluster segments around those industries, the threat actors find a vulnerability, and in that vulnerability, one of the byproducts that they can harvest is your contacts. And once they've harvested your contacts, doesn't matter how small you are. If you've got a 2-person company over here that's doing a subcontract for, XYZ company over here, and that address book gets harvested, now that XYZ company becomes a part of that lateral movement target.
Yeah.
So the investment really goes to protect the greater good of the community, because what you're effectively doing is you're investing in making sure your information and your data are secure in a way that doesn't allow it to get leaked out to someone else that could inadvertently hurt someone that you may be connected with, even on a friendship level. It's the phone book, the old saying, the old adage, my network is my net worth. And that is especially applicable when a cyber attack occurs, because first thing that you'll see is, in a good remediation of a cyber attack, the team will tell you, hey, what do you have in your address book? Because we need to let everybody on your address book know that you may have been breached, so that you can then have an awareness in case they see something suspicious or malicious come through. And that's how the threat actors jump from target to target. So the investment really is strengthening the business community's overall integrity and continuity, but making sure that the next person in line doesn't get hit because you were the weak link. I'll piggyback and say, second to that, there's a growing industry in the cyber insurance world, and as the insurance world sees cyber threats more unmitigated, the rates and premiums go up. And as the rates and premiums go up, we know in one area of insurance, you're going to see it probably across all.
Yeah.
Right. So the threat then becomes very real to them, and the risk becomes real too.
It's almost, I know this is very simplistic, but it's almost like making sure that you have adequate fire protection. If my building doesn't catch on fire, then it's not going to jump over and catch your building on fire.
Exactly.
So we kind of have a mutual obligation to one another to make sure we do defensively what we can to protect ourselves.
That's right. That's right.
So earlier you mentioned that the principle of least privilege. What does that mean? How you might it apply in your business?
Zero trust. Go ahead, Carlos. I was zero trust before zero trust was cool. That's right. So the principle of least privilege is a security policy that states an end user should only have the level of access needed to do their core competency of their job duties on a daily basis. So that's taking out all the additional permissions, all the additional fluff, do things that aren't solely, that their job duties don't solely rely on. Excuse me. So things like changing your background, downloading programs, installing programs without permission, all of those are removed in the principle of least privilege, and you're only allowed to access the parts of your computer and the parts of your software that are needed to do your core competencies for your job duties. Now that principle is part of a larger component called the zero trust policy, or the zero trust network. Thank you. ZTNA. And the full component of zero trust is basically deny until verified. Always trust, never trust, always verify, deny till verified, and then once verified, it can be approved. But it's not just an open free world. It's not the typical computer that you would sit down in and just be able to do anything you would like to be able to do on it. You have restrictions that are in place that keep you limited to what actions you're able to take. And due to that, the threat of you actually downloading something that may be malicious to your computer, or that may be malicious to the network, or that may cause damage to brand reputation, damage to data, is significantly decreased.
So if I'm a small or medium-sized business and I don't have an in-house IT function, I come to somebody like you, and you go through, user by user, what does this person really need to have on the system?
That's right.
And you decide what not to put on there, so that I don't inadvertently have something and do something that could hurt the entire system.
That's correct.
Okay, good. Well, folks, you heard that. Don't try to figure this out yourself. I assure you, I'm not going to try to figure this out by myself, because I don't think I could. So we only have a few moments left, but what are a few warning signs that your business may be vulnerable to cyber threats or attacks? What should I be looking for to understand my vulnerability?
Well, I'll start by saying that every business is vulnerable because it's the person that's vulnerable. If you're not doing security awareness training with your team on a structured advocating model, you're vulnerable. That's the first hallmark. That your people, once they're educated, then know how they should respond or what to delete and what not to delete. Second vulnerability, you're really looking at how are you managing your update cycles? How are you doing your hardware refreshes? What are your antivirus? And that gets a little more into the gray squishy area where you want a professional to come in and look at. You want someone that's seen it before to know what the pinholes could be, can bring to the table, or can come in and do a cyber analysis or penetration test of some sort. But effectively, you always start with the P, because people are what make the business work, and people are what the business depends on.
You know, in my law firm, they'll send us something to test us. It's scary too, because you can't tell that they're testing.
How do you get to the
Because
principal's
if you-
office if you click on it?
That's right. I've gotten in trouble once, and I'm telling you, I don't want to get in trouble again. But I mean, that's what it takes to inform me, to get me disciplined to the point where I know, okay, you need to be more careful than that. That's correct.
So it's like an exercise routine, right? You get up every day and you exercise and you work out that, and you build that muscle memory, so that when the actual threat comes, you respond accordingly. And it's a very, very effective method.
And that's known as security awareness training.
That's right.
And that's a component that we offer as well as a service to our clients. But that is a training component that, one, it gauges and gives us a baseline of how your end users are responding inside of your organization. So once you get that email is tracked to your inbox and then told exactly what happens once it hits your inbox. So for the person that administered that simulation to you, they're able to see, okay, Bradley received this. Did he click it? And did he click it? Did he go to
How long did he keep it open?
Right. Did he go to the link that was on the page? Did he put in credentials? Did he hit submit? And then once you hit submit, if you go all the way through it, more than likely you receive an infographic page that comes up and says something to the effect of,
Gotcha.
yeah, you've been booked, you fell victim to a phishing scam. And then that result is sent back over and it tells us, okay, he is utilizing unsafe practices on his computer because he's clicking things that he's unaware of that he thought was legitimate. And if this had been a real scenario, you would have given away your information to someone. And at that time, you then issued a security awareness training video or some type of learning webinar that you have to go through. It's usually 3 to 5 minutes long. But there's recurrent training that comes along that teaches you then what to look for. And the next time that it comes across, because now that you know you've been caught, and more than likely it's been addressed to you by someone that you have been caught by it, you are more suspicious of things that come across, and you're more vigilant when it comes across, which is a good thing. It raises your awareness immediately to the security threats that are out there, even though they look legitimate, and more, they're becoming more convincing every day.
So nobody wants to be embarrassed.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. It's kind of,
I don't mind the 3 to 5 minute video. It's that first thing they tell you, you messed up.
that's the red hen catch.
It's the old adage: people don't have a fear of failure; they have a fear of public humiliation.
Yeah.
It's really that, and it unfortunately in IT, it's very effective when you're dealing with cybersecurity. Carl and the team at the office, they dig a lot more into it than I do on a daily basis, and I mean, they are absolute wizards at setting up a structured program that creates a good environment for testing, that creates a healthy feedback for the client. And that's what it takes to get people across the finish line, to make sure that their business stays operational and running smooth.
So this is an investment that is well worth everybody's while, because if you don't invest in it and you get hit, it's a lot more expensive to fix it than it is to prevent it.
Absolutely.
I always say, what the cost is to educate people and train. Until you've had an attack and had to mitigate it, you don't know what that cost is.
Yeah. And let's not find out.
Right.
Let's avoid that altogether. Well, Carl and Abe, thank you both for sharing your time and expertise today. I know cybersecurity can feel overwhelming for many small and medium-sized businesses, but conversations like this remind us how critical it is to stay informed and to be proactive. If you'd like to learn more about Harper Technologies and how they can support your business, you can visit them online or connect with them through the Mobile Chamber Business Directory. From the heart of the Mobile business community, this is another episode of Mobile Matters, powered by the Mobile Chamber, with a special thank you to our sponsor, Visit Mobile. Be sure to subscribe whenever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss future conversations about the people, ideas, and innovations shaping Mobile's business community. We'll see you next time.